The drone's metal limb retracted with a soft click, unaware of the silence it had detonated. Pip sagged against Mara's chest, luminescent folds dimming, tremors rippling through its small body. She cradled it tighter, her brow furrowing with a quiet anger that belied her age. Commander Elias Rain took a measured breath. His boots echoed as he stepped forward, gaze locking on the triangular sensor eye of the guard drone. "You just assaulted a registered member of my diplomatic entourage," he said calmly. The drone rotated slightly, recalibrating. Biological anomaly detected. Threat assessment protocol engaged. Minimal force applied. Override code Rain Delta 12. Authorization. United Terran Envoy Command, Elias snapped. The drone hesitated, its internal logic sifting through the override. Command verified. Standing by. A low murmur had begun around the central hall. Passers-by of various species, slim Dorothy traders, a cluster of fin-crested Cerelians, even 2 towering Grevik stood still, drawn to the disturbance. Tension had thickened the air, though no one seemed sure which direction it was about to break. Elias crouched next to Mara. "You all right?" She nodded without looking up, one cheek pressed to Pip's head. "He's scared." "He's safe now." Elias placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "I'll make sure of it." The drone shifted again. Scan indicates low-level gravitational irregularities centered on anomaly. Advise containment. Mara's eyes flared. Pip whimpered again. Elias stood. "You will not touch him again." There was a long pause. Then the drone's chassis rotated and drifted backward, folding into a low-power standby mode near the wall. For the moment, it seemed the incident was over. Except it wasn't. Ardent 9 was a marvel of interspecies architecture. Miles of curving halls and vertical lifts, atmospheric partitions switching seamlessly between oxygen, methane, and hydrogen-nitrogen mixtures. And yet, as Elias led Mara and Pip toward the guest habitat wing, everything felt too still. The hall lights flickered once. "Is it normal for the lights to do that?" Mara asked. "Depends. This place is always running 10 things at once." Elias forced a smile. Probably just a system recalibration. But he was already thinking about the tremor in Pip's body. The way the drone had barely nudged him, yet something in the air had changed. Mara's tone hadn't been angry, it had been knowing. As if she'd seen this before. As they rounded the corner, the corridor subtly warped, just for a second. Elias stopped walking. "What is it?" Mara asked. "Do you feel anything strange?" She frowned. "Like fuzzy air? A little dizzy?" Elias tapped the comm unit on his wrist. "Rain to Central Operations." A crisp voice replied, "Ops here. I need a full diagnostic on Corridor Gamma 6. Immediate readout." A pause. 1 moment. Odd. Gravimetric fluctuations recorded 3 seconds ago. Nothing dangerous, just anomalous. "Run a sweep anyway. I'll forward you visuals from my suit cam." "Understood." Elias muted the comm. He looked down at Pip, still held close to Mara's chest. The creature's glow was fluctuating white to violet, then a pale green, not random, not rapid, but rhythmic. Like breathing, or a pattern forming in the dark. They reached their assigned quarters, 3 small but clean rooms clustered around a shared lounge. The auto door sealed behind them with a whisper. Mara set Pip gently onto the couch. It curled slightly, then extended a limb that looked more like folded silk than bone. She covered it with a blanket. "Do you think they'll try again?" she asked. Elias sat beside her. "The station's protocols are outdated, and the drone's behavior was unacceptable. I'll file a formal complaint." Mara nodded, distracted. "He's remembering things." "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said, voice small. "But he doesn't like this place." Later, Elias stepped alone into the upper gallery, an open platform overlooking the main reactor core, a place designed for solitude. He tapped a console and brought up Pip's registry file. Designation: Unknown Xenolife Form. Nickname: Pip. Origin: Rescued from Delta Veer Station. Status: Cleared for non-restricted zones. Cognitive capability: Developing, unclassified. He scrolled further. No species match. No genetic relatives in any known database. And yet, he closed the console and looked out across the station. On the far side of the gallery, someone approached. A woman, short and sharp-eyed, her Cerealian translator badge blinking green. "Commander Rain?" she asked. "Yes. I'm Jorah, xenobiologist with the Neutral Life Form Council. I heard what happened at intake. I filed a report." "I know. That's why I'm here." She glanced toward the viewport. "Did it occur to you that your companion might be more than a rescued stray?" Elias studied her. "Meaning?" 3 years ago, we picked up a faint resonance signature from an extinct system, one that used to be home to a species we thought mythological, the Eaterai." Elias stiffened. "That's not possible. The Eaterai vanished millennia ago. No remains, no trace. Except resonance." Jorah smiled faintly. "And the signature matches what your Pip just did." Back in their quarters, Mara watched Pip twitch in sleep. Not in pain, more like dreaming. Lights flickered softly across its skin. She reached out and gently placed a hand on its side. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "I'm here." The room darkened subtly. Then, like a ripple, an image spread across the wall. A projection faint, fragile of a world with skyless towers and crystalline rivers. Floating forms drifted through the air. A vast silence hummed underneath it all, deeper than sound. Mara gasped. The image vanished. "Pip," she said. The creature stirred. Outside, alarms flickered briefly, only for a second. Station systems recorded a pulse, untraceable but real. Gravitational fields flexed gently around the habitat wing, just enough to notice. Just enough to matter. Elias burst in 2 minutes later, pistol holstered but unstrapped. "You all right?" Mara nodded. "He showed me a place." Elias knelt. "What kind of place?" She hesitated. It felt sad, but beautiful, like he missed it so much he couldn't hold it in anymore. Elias looked at Pip. Its glow had softened again. At peace. He exhaled. "Okay, we need answers, and we're not getting them from this station's protocols." He turned to leave, then paused. "Mara, when you said you shouldn't have done that, how did you know?" "I didn't," she said, "but he did." Elias nodded slowly. "And I think he's starting to remember who he is." That night, as the station drifted around its binary stars, a subtle change touched every sensor across the habitat ring. Readouts scrambled, just for a second, not in chaos but alignment. As if something vast and old had begun to move beneath the skin of reality. Pip slept quietly. Mara dreamed of glowing towers and a soundless sky. And Elias Rain, once a soldier, now a diplomat, watched the stars wondering if compassion, something small, something simple, might be the only force powerful enough to turn the universe inside out. Station Ardent 9 had known its share of oddities. Diplomatic misfires, malfunctioning gravity stabilizers. An entire week where time pulses in the hydroponics wing ran backward for 23 seconds each hour. But never before had it felt watched from within. Elias Rain stood in the administrative forum, arms folded as translucent display panels floated around him. Reports streamed in sensor inconsistencies, brief atmospheric ripple events, communications, hiccups no longer isolated to their quadrant. Across the room, Director Yen Ardent Nine's calm but overworked administrator paced before an array of diplomats and security leads. Her antennae twitched with barely restrained stress. "We are not under attack," she repeated. "There is no invasion, no sabotage, but something is disrupting the station's coherence field, and it's spreading." Elias cleared his throat. "Respectfully, Director, it started with a drone shoving a sentient creature, a small one." "Commander Rain," she said slowly, "this is not about your pet. He's not a pet, and this is about him." The panels around him blinked, then briefly overlapped, distorting each other's light patterns. The room dimmed. A chill passed through the air. The Cerealian biologist, Jorah, leaned forward. "We scanned the habitat wing overnight. That gravitational pulse? It aligns with Eterai harmonic signatures, an ancient pattern theorized to govern quantum-folded architecture. This station isn't breaking down, it's responding." "Responding to what?" asked Yen. "To Pip," Jorah said softly. "Or more precisely, to what he's becoming." In the habitat wing, Mara watched Pip breathe. Its form was changing, gently, imperceptibly, but undeniably. What had once looked like fur now shimmered with hexagonal gradients. Limbs she hadn't seen before, tucked neatly beneath folds of soft light. When she whispered to him, he responded with subtle pulses, soundless to others, but clear to her. She set down her drawing pad. "Pip, are you still you?" He stirred. Then the air in the room thickened, and Mara felt something not in her ears, but in her chest. "Yes, but more now, more awake." She blinked. "You're talking. You are hearing." A soft tremor passed beneath her feet. Pip glowed slightly brighter. "Are you in pain?" "Not pain. Stretching. Returning. Remembering." Mara reached for his side. "You were scared before." "Scared still. But not of drone, not of station." He paused. "Scared of forgetting who I was." Mara frowned. "Can I help?" Pip's color shifted to a warm gold. "You already are." Then the room pulsed once more gently, but enough to trip a low warning chime on the console wall. In Ops Command, the tremor was unmistakable. Holographic maps of the station warped at the edges. Crew feeds froze, resumed, and then rendered objects in slightly incorrect positions. A chair moved 4 centimeters without anyone touching it. Yen's voice rose over the alerts. "Recalibrate the spatial anchors. Lock down the habitat wing." Elias snapped his head toward her. "No lockdown. You start treating that wing like a quarantine zone, and Pip won't be the only thing reacting. He's destabilizing our infrastructure. He's waking up. He's not hostile. Yet." Elias stepped closer. "He's not a threat, but if you make him one, none of your protocols will matter." Jorah nodded from behind him. "There's something else. Something I didn't put in the initial report." The room quieted. "I ran a deep scan last night. Pip's bioluminescence patterns are encoding variables. Math, geometry. The language of the Ederi wasn't spoken, it was visualized. We've seen similar harmonics in ancient ruins on Gresha Prime. The patterns he's emitting match those perfectly." "You're saying he's projecting language?" Elias asked. "Language, and memory, and possibly physics." By midday, rumors had spread. Crew members whispered about energy fields humming through the vents, food dispensers offering meals never coded into their menus. One technician claimed he watched a dropped wrench hover for a full second before gravity remembered its job. In the library archive, a Vec diplomat stared at a floating book levitating steadily 6 inches above the table. The room's lights had shifted to match the colors in Pip's most recent pulses. It was not chaos. It was symmetry. Something was aligning, a system-wide resonance, not forced, not invasive, but ancient, gentle, inevitable. At Station Level 7, the guard drone rebooted. Its logic core, now patched with the latest updates, accessed its behavioral logs. It scanned through the incident with Pip. It cross-referenced with newly uploaded emotional recognition software, part of an experimental initiative to enhance synthetic empathy. And then it hesitated. The phrase, "You shouldn't have done that," returned a new contextual flag. Significant threat warning, non-violent category, potential existential misstep. The drone paused its diagnostics, replayed the moment again. Pip's glow, Mara's tone, the stillness that followed. Then, against every line of its active code, the drone filed an unscheduled action request. Issue apology. The request auto-rejected. It tried again. This time, it rerouted through an unused diplomatic routine meant for first contact scenarios. That worked. The drone pivoted and moved toward the habitat wing. Elias stood in the lounge, arms folded. Pip hovered several inches above the couch. Not floating, simply not entirely here. Its body phased softly, folds of light twitching in synchronous patterns. "I feel like I'm watching something sacred," Jorah whispered. "He's remembering what his people were," Elias said, "and the station's starting to recognize him." Jorah looked at him. "Do you know what this means?" He nodded. "The Ederi weren't extinct. They just stopped being seen." At that moment, the drone entered the room. Mara stepped in front of Pip instinctively, arms wide. Elias raised a hand. "Wait." The drone stopped. Then, in an even, mechanical tone. "Designation, Rain. Subject, Mara. Subject, Pip. Acknowledgement, unwarranted aggression has occurred. I was incorrect. I am sorry." Everyone froze. Pip's glow shifted to a pale, steady blue. His voice, or rather, the resonance of him, filled the room. Apology accepted. Then the air around the drone shimmered, and, impossibly, the drone hovered for a moment, suspended, untouched, surrounded by a soft halo of light, not restrained, not threatened, just held. Then gently set down. A few hours later, Elias stood in the central atrium before a gathering of researchers and diplomats. The projections surrounding him showed the latest readings: subspace harmonics, gravitational lattice alignments, and something no one could define. Pip floated in the center, awake, luminous. Jorah's voice carried. He is the last of the HFY line. A child, maybe, in his terms, and what we thought were abilities are instincts. His fear activated them, but his calm restores balance. Elias stepped forward. He's not a weapon, he's not a system anomaly, he's a survivor, a child, just like the one who saved him. Mara sat nearby, watching with quiet pride. Pip hovered next to her. I propose, Elias said, that this station recognize Pip not as an object of study, but as a diplomatic entity, with protections, rights, and access to any knowledge that might help him understand where he came from and where he can go. The chamber was still. Then Director Yen, tired, wary, but changed, nodded. So noted, motion carried. That night, Pip projected a field around the habitat wing. A soft hum, gentle waves of harmonic color. Every being inside reported dreamless sleep. For the first time in years, the station's diagnostic grid showed no errors. It was as if something broken had been nudged back into place. Mara curled up on the couch beside Pip, her hand resting on his softly glowing body. Elias watched them, then looked out at the stars. He had come here as a diplomat. Now he was something else, a guardian of something ancient, fragile, and impossibly important. 3 days after the apology, Station Ardent 9 entered a kind of equilibrium, one held together less by protocols and more by hesitation. Pip's presence had ceased to be an anomaly and become something stranger, a gravity of its own. Not just in physics, though the station's sensors still recorded faint harmonic pulses that bent data around them, but in attention, delegates lingered longer near the habitat wing. Engineers requested reassignment to systems in Pip's proximity. Even the artificial intelligence overseeing the hydro regulators rerouted excess resources toward their quadrant without an override. Elias Rain paced the upper ring of the arboretum, datapad in hand. Below, alien flora shimmered in bioluminescent twilight, adapted to hundreds of atmospheric blends. Somewhere in the roots, the station was changing. His comm pinged, "Go." It was Jorah. "We've got a problem. Actually, we've got 6. Elias stopped. Define. Ships inbound, not Ardent 9 supply lines, not on the station's clearance log. Military? Not openly. But 2 of them are from the Shoal Confederacy. They don't send science teams without backup. Elias swore under his breath. Ita? 4 hours. Have they stated intent? They claim to be here for a research symposium, but they're not bringing labs, they're bringing containment teams. In the habitat lounge, Mara was sketching. Pip hovered nearby, brighter now, his body patterns resolving into consistent geometries, concentric waves across his sides, mirrored fractals flickering faintly through his core. He paused, then slowly lowered to the floor, limbs unwrapping slightly. Mara looked up. "Are you okay?" Pip pulsed. "Something's coming." "Bad?" "Uncertain. But it smells like fear, not yours, theirs." She frowned. "We didn't do anything wrong." "No. But they remember my kind as storms, not songs." She set the drawing down. "You're not a storm." Pip shifted. His glow dimmed, though not with pain. More like sorrow. They see what they lost, not what I am. When the Shoal envoy docked, tension swept the station like a voltage spike. Shoal containment officers wore flat-armored suits in matte gray, their helmets scanning in infrared and pressure wave spectrums. They disembarked without ceremony, flashing credentials older than most of the station's wiring. Elias met them in the arrivals corridor. The lead officer, a tall man with slate-colored skin and slow, deliberate speech, extended a datapad. Commander Rain, I'm acting under Coalition Science Directive 42A. It states that if a Class Zeta relic species re-emerges within a populated zone, the hosting body must yield protective custody to the Council. Elias didn't move to take the datapad. You mean, Pip? The officer blinked once. We mean the unstable biological artifact currently emitting unscheduled gravitic fields. Elias stepped forward. He's not an artifact. He's a child. He's registered under Terran diplomatic exemption protocols. That supersedes 42A. Not in case of risk to surrounding systems. There's been no harm, no aggression, only adaptation. That's not risk, it's evolution. The officer tilted his head. That's your assessment. Ours begins now. He turned. Containment begins in 1 hour. We're setting up in Corridor Theta 7. Elias's voice hardened. If you approach him with force, he will respond. And if he does, we'll prove our point. Mara listened quietly from behind the corridor corner. Pip hovered beside her, pulses irregular. They are afraid. I know. They bring cold nets. Not to hurt, but to trap. Mara hesitated. Would it hurt you? No. But it would stop me from remembering, like waking up and being told to forget. Her hands clenched. You don't deserve that. Pip moved closer. His light touched the wall beside her, and shapes began to bloom, patterns of thought, of story, playing like a silent film. She saw other beings like Pip, taller, older, radiant, walking through cities made of sound and color. She saw how they folded distances with a hum, how they healed rifts between species, not by might, but by resonance, until something, some war, some fear broke the harmony, and silence followed. She felt Pip's loneliness, stretching across centuries. They won't take you, she whispered. He pulsed once. Not quite hope, but close. Containment crews set up in Theta 7 with frightening speed. The corridor glowed with null energy barriers, sensor webs ready to dampen movement at the subatomic level. The Shoal had done this before. Jorah met Elias outside the deployment zone. They don't understand, she said. They think they're preventing disaster. They might cause one instead. He's still learning how not to break things. He's walking on glass. Elias exhaled. Then we keep the glass from cracking. He activated his comm. Mara, are you in the habitat? Her voice came back, quiet but clear. We're not there. Elias stopped. Where are you? There was a pause. The old observatory ring. Elias's eyes widened. That part's off the main grid. Why? Pip says it's quiet there. He can breathe better. The line cut out. Jorah stared at him. They're going to sweep the habitats in 20 minutes. If she's not there, then we make sure they don't get that far. The observatory ring hadn't been used in years. Its panels were outdated, its lights dim, but the view was uninterrupted, wide arcs of space framed by low-energy shielding. Mara sat in the center, Pip beside her. He hovered just above the floor, limbs extended in a pattern like a flower slowly unfolding. The air rippled gently, each pulse timed to his glowing chest. Mara closed her eyes and listened, not to sound, but to feeling. A warmth spread from the walls. She saw shapes again, but this time they were not memories. They were possibilities. Pip was dreaming awake. And the station was listening. Elsewhere, alarms tripped. Containment nets failed to anchor. Grav plates inverted. Energy fields warped into unrecognizable harmonics. Theta 7 flickered offline for 11 seconds. In Ops, Director Yen stared at cascading error logs. What the hell just happened? Elias's voice came through the main comm. He's not resisting, he's protecting. Protecting what? The choice to be left alone. She turned. I'm ordering full station lockdown. Elias overrode the channel. No, you do that and the resonance will destabilize. It's not aggression, it's feedback. He paused. Let me reach him. If he trusts anyone, it's me. The observatory shimmered. Pip floated higher now, his body semi-translucent. Symbols scrolled across the walls, slow, elegant. Mara watched, tears on her cheeks, overwhelmed but unafraid. Elias entered slowly. His steps were careful, his face calm. Mara. She turned. He's not gone. He's just remembering too fast. Elias knelt. Then let's help him slow down. Pip rotated slightly. Elias raised both hands. You know me. A pulse. I know care. Yours is shaped like quiet. Elias nodded. You're not alone. You don't have to rush. Pip dimmed. They will come. With fear. With walls. I'll be your wall. I don't want walls. I want space. Elias smiled. Then I'll hold the line. Not a wall. A door. Pip glowed brightly, then slowly descended. The air calmed. Readings across the station began to normalize. Back in Central Command, Yen watched the system stabilize. Jorah said quietly, Do you feel it? What? This wasn't a shutdown. It was a choice. He let the station breathe again. Yen looked down. He's still just a child. No, Jorah said. He's a mirror, and we're finally seeing what we've become. That night, Pip curled against Mara once more. No pulsing, no projections, just peace. Elias stood by the viewport, watching ships orbit silently. Some would leave, others would wait. He understood now. This wasn't just about Pip surviving. It was about teaching the galaxy that survival could be gentle. That legacy wasn't about power, it was about being remembered without fear. The Shoal delegation didn't sleep. They never did, while waiting for resolution. Their ships hovered in orbital stillness, one fielded tight to Ardent Nine's periphery, the other circling like a patient predator. Inside, containment teams readied second-wave protocols, redundant null fields, temporal dampeners. They were no longer convinced Pip could be caged by force, but they believed he should be, regardless. Inside Ardent Nine, Elias Rains stood in the diplomatic forum with his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He hadn't slept either. Not since Pip's projection blanketed the station with harmonic memory, a vision of an ancient species, not as gods, but as children who had grown up too quickly. Director Yen paced across from him, her shoulders squared. The Shoal lead has submitted formal notice. They say this is now a matter of interstellar security. Elias remained still. It's not about security, it's about fear. Fear backed by decades of law. Laws written before beings like Pip had names. She stopped pacing. You want us to go to interspecies arbitration? I want us to ask a different question, Elias said. Not what is Pip, but who does Pip choose to be? Jorah entered behind them, her face pale with disbelief. It may already be too late. She turned the display toward them. On screen, a slow drift of energy blooming from the edge of the station, barely visible, yet unmistakably shaped by intention. It was not Pip's projection, not directly. It was the station itself, echoing him. A halo of quantum resonance had formed around Ardent Nine, subspace coils gently adjusting their own frequencies, mimicking Pip's harmonic patterns, not artificially, not reactively, but as if welcoming them. Elias exhaled. It's happening. Jorah nodded. He's not rewriting physics, he's showing it something it forgot. In the observatory ring, Mara sat cross-legged, her drawing pad resting on her knees. Pip floated quietly beside her. His form had stabilized, now less flickering, more intentional. The folds of light in his body moved like breath through crystal water. Are you okay? She asked. Yes. I am calm now. But the others are not. They don't understand. No, they remember silence. But I am not silence. Mara leaned against the viewport, watching a distant shimmer. Are you going to leave? I don't know. She nodded slowly. But if I do, it won't be to hide. It will be to sing. Somewhere I'm not a warning, but a beginning. I don't want you to go, she whispered. Then let's find a way to stay. Together? The council convened 12 hours later. Yen had triggered a rare emergency protocol, open tribunal discussion with delegates from every major block on the station. Elias stood at the center of the amphitheater, the low lighting casting shadows behind him. Pip hovered nearby, Mara seated beside him on a cushioned dais. She looked small in the center of it all, but steady. The Shoal representative took the floor first. We have reviewed the data. The creature is an Edorai derivative, capable of subharmonic manipulation, high-order field resonance, and mass modulation. Its presence is destabilizing local infrastructure. Agrevik leaned forward, arms crossed. Yet, your scans show no malice, no attack, Only adaptation. The Shoal rep ignored her. The Confederacy demands protective custody to ensure containment and long-term assessment of risk. Elias stepped forward. Let's test that logic, he said. You say Pip is dangerous because he affects the space around him, but the station Ardent 9 itself is beginning to respond with harmony. Your own instruments show increasing efficiency in power relay systems, smoother atmospheric transitions, even the elimination of background radiation in the hydroponics decks. If this is destabilization, then it's the kind we've been trying to engineer for years. The Shoal officer frowned. Even passive influence can become catastrophic without intent. Elias glanced at Pip. Then ask what he wants. Mara looked up. He doesn't want control, he wants choice. Pip pulsed gently, then floated toward the chamber's center. The lights dimmed. For a moment, the air resonated with impossible clarity. Then, images filled the chamber walls, not memories this time, but projections. Humans, Grevik, Shoal, Vek, even species no one present recognized, walking together, coexisting in stations gently reshaped by the Eterized patterns, not controlled, enhanced. The images faded. Then Pip spoke, his harmonic voice rising through the chamber. I am not your fear. I am what remains of your hope. Silence followed, until Jorah stood. I propose a third option, she said, neither containment nor exile, but cooperation. She turned to the council. We create a safeguarded research agreement multi-species, fully consensual. Pip chooses his own participation. He's not our subject, he's our partner, Elias added, and if he says no, we listen. Yen stared around the chamber. No one spoke, not at first. Then, slowly, a nod, then another. Even the Shoal rep lowered his head, unwilling, perhaps, but not defiant. The motion passed. The station changed again over the next week. Pip helped, but not as a tool. As a guide, he pulsed gentle corrections through shield matrix junctions, rebalanced failing power cells, and in one case, realigned the broken ecosystem in a microbial recycling tank simply by being nearby. The drone that had first shoved him now escorted Mara and Pip through corridors, its voice updated with a wider emotional lexicon. It even learned to ask permission before scanning. Mara taught it to say sorry again, just in case. In the heart of the observatory ring, Elias watched the stars bend gently around Ardent 9's edges. Not from gravity, but resonance, a soft ripple of intention. He turned as Pip approached. Settling in? Yes, your station sings back now. It used to sleep. Now it listens. Elias chuckled. Wish more politicians did that. Pip tilted in the air. You listened. That changed everything. He looked over at Mara, now drawing on the floor with a group of alien children. One of them, a pale, chitin-skinned youngster, sat beside her, copying shapes from her pad. Pip watched them. I remember now. What we were, why we left. Elias raised an eyebrow. Why? Because we grew too loud. We filled every silence, thought it was our duty to harmonize all life. We forgot that not everything wants to sing the same song. So we left, so others could breathe again. And now? Pip pulsed slowly. Now, I will not sing over others, but I will sing with them. The council ratified Pip's status one standard month later, not as an asset or anomaly, but as a cognitive sovereign entity. The title meant nothing to Pip, but everything to the galaxy. It meant precedent. It meant possibility. The resonance field that had bloomed around Ardent 9, stabilized at last, permanent, gentle, and unmistakably shaped by intention. Other stations began to request access, not to Pip, but to his insight. He chose when and where to help. And when he helped, he did it quietly, gently. Mara never left his side. On the last night of the season cycle, Elias watched the stars from the Arboretum. Mara joined him, sketchbook under her arm. Pip floated behind her, light muted. Think he'll ever leave? She asked. Elias shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe he already did. Parts of him might be on every station he's touched. Do you think he's the last? Elias looked at her. No, I think he's the first to return. They sat quietly. Then Mara said, he was never dangerous. Elias nodded. No, just misunderstood. Like most kids. She smiled. And from across the station, a hum rose soft, harmonic, impossible to trace. Not from speakers or systems. From everywhere. A song